Damn, not that close. Shit. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I've been hyping up this video for a good minute now, and I think I'm finally ready to get started on this video. So we're all aware of Pixar's success, right? Making hit after hit, besides that one time they had a little small bump in the road. Crossing the $1 billion mark 4 times. Even the films that didn't gross $1 billion grossed a wealthy amount of money, and earned themselves many Oscars. Even though sometimes they didn't deserve it, but hey, who's you? But regardless of that, we have 23 films. Timeless classics, films that are quotable from beginning to end, and this video is going to be long! But the important thing is, I got Disney Plus. Okay, let me be honest with y'all. I started writing this video in August, so this joke's a little dated. Alright, so let's not waste any more time. Let's get into the films, starting with Pixar's first film was Toy Story, released in 1995, claiming the title as the first CG film released in theaters. I'm not gonna do that cringy thing to where I say, is it gonna hold up? We'll just find out. It's actually quite refreshing to watch this film again. It's really weird seeing Woody act like this to Buzz, especially after seeing the other films. After waiting way too long to rewatch this film, I can definitely say that this film still holds up. I literally just said the thing I was gonna do. It's funny because I genuinely think that all Toy Story films improve from the last entry. Toy Story is very funny, and I swear you can never convince me that Mr. Potato Head isn't funny. And also introducing John Ratzenberger. Hopefully I can remind myself to write down every role he was in every Pixar film. Yeah, I didn't do it. There's not too much to say. The story's pretty simple, the characters are likable, animation is dated but revolutionary. The movie still holds up, and I really do dig Toy Story. But I will say this, I'm doing a tier list, which is most likely going to piss some people off. But I'll put Toy Story in the A column. Still a good movie. Okay, so I probably made it seem like I didn't like A Bug's Life in my Nth review, which isn't true at all. But I'm happy we're finally going to review it today. Okay, Pixar's second film, A Bug's Life, which before I rewatched it recently, I haven't seen this movie in years. So yeah, in my answer review, I'll admit I was going off memory, but I promise I rewatched this movie for this video. So let's get started. I like the main character Flick. He's really likable. I love it how even when the whole colony hates him, he still finds a way to look on the right side of things. He still messes up in the beginning, but hey, what you talking about? Princess Ada's a decent character. I'll say this, I don't like Flick and Ada's relationship at all. They literally start liking each other out of nowhere, and the movie kinda just went with it. The circus bugs are really funny, and I love the fact that they just follow along with Flick's lie, which eventually leads to the lie reveal plot, which I personally really didn't care for. The villain of the film, Hopper, shit. Again, he's just an asshole just to be one. He bullies the other ants just because he's too lazy to get his own food, but he's not lazy to go to a bar. I'll admit, it gives me one of my favorite scenes in the film, but besides that, he's just okay. This movie gave birth to the bloopers at the end credits of every Pixar film. That really didn't last too long if you really think about it, but this was somewhat funny, not gonna lie. I cringed in some parts, but I'm not gonna miss this type of thing. But overall, I still like A Bug's Life. Rewatching it definitely helped me realize how much I actually like this movie. And it's still better, but I dig this film. And I think I'm gonna put it in the B column. Definitely a fun time. Next film is Toy Story 2. Oh man, I love the behind the scenes features of this film. I learned that this film was originally meant to be a direct-to-DVD film, and also how 90% of this film was deleted. I think it was 90%. I'm pretty sure production for this must have been crazy, and I don't think the movie got delayed, so mad respect. But this is one of those sequels that improved from the original, introducing new characters like Bullseye, Jessie, Al McWiggin, Mrs. Potato Head, Wheezy, Barbie, Zurg, and the villain Stinky Pete. Now I can't do a Toy Story 2 review without mentioning the Jessie backstory scene. After rewatching this film, I love that scene a lot more. I adore scenes that could tell a story without words. The whole movie was a major improvement. I love how they gave Woody more characters. Seeing Woody not know why his show got canceled or knowing who Jessie or Pete was a nice addition to the story. The addition of the new characters make this film feel a lot more wholesome. They're also likable. And I'll admit, it was weird not to see Jessie in the first film. I was just so used to seeing her and Bullseye. Stinky Pete was a pretty good villain. Not one of my favorites, but his plan was well thought out. I also really enjoyed how the adventure felt bigger than the last film. The story is fun. The characters are fun too. This whole film was just a pleasure to watch. Alright, we got a new special guest. Go ahead and take it away, Manuel D.
Well, looks like I'm collaborating with Mr. Timothy Reviews once again, and on another Disney property. Who knew? And hey, this time I'm talking about one of my favorite animated properties from Disney Pixar, that being, of course, Toy Story. I mean, it's one of those animated series that I grew up heavily watching. It's one of the most nostalgic animated things I've seen in a long while. And hey, I'm gonna talk about that one movie that a lot of people like that I also really like and that got me into the series. That being Toy Story 2. And it is a really good fucking movie. But I gotta say that in terms of comparing in Toy Story 1 to Toy Story 2, I think everyone can agree that Toy Story 2 is an improvement from the original in every single way. Let's start out with the story, with there being two plots. In plot A, the toys in Andy's room had just witnessed Woody getting stolen by the collector Al, with Buzz Lightyear and the gang trying to save him, while at the same time in Al's penthouse, Woody finds out how much value he has, and thinking about getting a display with a toy museum around with his Woody's roundup pals Jessie and Stinky Pete. The reason is that he knows deep inside of him that Andy will grow up one day and forget about him. The dilemma and themes of this that Woody has is really good, which makes sense. In a way, it's foreshadowing Toy Story 3, so rather than being forgotten, he gets along with his new friends forever if he takes the chance at being in the museum in Japan. Not only is that the only theme, but there's also the theme of blood family versus new family, and this is definitely shown with the backstory of Jessie with the montage with the song When Somebody Loves Me by Sarah McLachlan, which almost to an extent puts me to tears. It is incredible. Let's talk about the characters. We get some old characters returning from the first movie, those being Mr. Potato Head, Ham, Rex, and Slinky, as well as new characters such as Bullseye, Wheezy, Jessie, and Stinky Pete. And man, there's something that was really cool to see, is that there's a reference to the short film of Pixar called Gary's Game, with him being the toy repair guy. It is so cool. Yeah, speaking of Stinky Pete, I think that he's a really good twist villain. I definitely didn't see it coming the first time I saw the movie. Well, then again, I was a kid when I watched this movie for the first time, but that's besides the point. But watching the movie now, I definitely thought that his motivations kind of made sense. The fact that he's never been loved or played with gave him a different psychology from the other toys. The museum would have been the closest thing he'd ever have, so of course he's gonna do anything for that. So compared to other twist villains, I definitely think that Stinky Pete is one of the better ones. Let's talk about the other stuff. First of all, the plot B with Buzz and the gang, I think it's fun. But like, watching it again, I definitely prefer the Woody stuff more than that stuff. Which is definitely a big difference from when I was a kid, which I definitely preferred more the Buzz stuff. We have the animation, which I still think holds up very well to this day. And surprisingly enough, this movie was supposed to be a direct-to-video sequel, which this movie definitely doesn't seem like, in my opinion. Then we have the voice acting, which I think everyone did an amazing job at, especially Tom Hanks. He killed it in this role. So overall, if you haven't noticed yet, Toy Story 2 is really good. Like, really fucking good. I have no problem calling this one of the better Toy Story movies, and it is a great movie. So if you've not seen it, I highly recommend it. You will not be disappointed with this fun yet dramatic ride.
I definitely think that this film holds up years later. I think I'll sit it in the A column along with the first film. In 2002, the Oscars started a new category, Best Animated Feature Film. Monsters Inc., Shrek, and Jimmy Neutron were nominated. Monsters Inc. lost to Shrek, so yeah, at least it got nominated, right? But anyways, I love this movie so much. It should have won the Oscar instead of Shrek. You know what, screw Shrek, all my homies say Shrek. Nah, I'm just playing, man. John Goodman and Billy Crystal do a fantastic job working off each other. Sully's just a fun, likable person, and such a caring person to boot. Mike Wazowski, what hasn't been said about this guy? There's so many memes of this guy. I'll most definitely not post any memes. Okay, for real, I won't post another one. but Mike Wazowski is an extremely funny character. He's always full of energy, and his relationship with Boo was very low-key. At first, he couldn't care less, but he eventually gets emotional when she leaves. Mr. Waternoose has a cool looking design. He's also one of the more interesting villains. His company that's been family business for years was falling apart, so he was willing to do anything, even kidnapping children, just to keep the company afloat. Which, I know this type of villain is overdone to death, but I really like how it's done in this film. Randall is the second villain, and the second top scarer. His plan is basically to be Sully in terms of being the scariest, even to the point where he cheated, introducing the new character Boo. But later on in the film, he evolves into a legit threat, nearly killing Sully twice. Randall is voiced by Steve Buscemi, and he's surprisingly good in his role, given the sinister sounding voice every time he speaks. Mike's girlfriend, Celia, is alright. She spends most of her time being pissed off at Mike though. Rouse is just there until the end of the film. But she's funny though. Boo, well, she's a kid, which I was low-key surprised on how well this movie aged in terms of animation. Pixar improved on how they make humans look in their films. I mean, look at Boo, she's adorable. The scene where Mike and Sully are going door to door is fun to watch. And I don't know why this happened, but once I rewatched this movie and I made it to the scene where Sully leaves Boo at home, I've seen this movie multiple times, mind you. But for some reason I got all teary-eyed. This is such a good scene, and a great example of good chemistry. Chemistry so good that it hurts you to see them go away. And I love the ending where Sully and Boo get to see each other again. And the movie ends with Sully having the biggest smile on his face, which I was disappointed with Monsters University, but one step at a time. We have yet another special guest, the homie himself, Shade X. Pleasure having you.
Hello, it's Shade X, and for Timothy Reviews Revival's Every Pixar Film Reviewed video, I chose to talk about Monsters, Inc. Monsters, Inc. is a great Pixar film. The film is about a professional scarer named James P. Sullivan, aka Sully, a blue furry monster, and the charming Mike Wazowski, a short green cyclops. They both work for Monsters, Inc., a company that harnesses children's screams to power the city that they and other creatures inhabit. The monsters at the organization are assigned children who they are supposed to scare. One thing I love about this world is that kids fear the monsters and vice versa. Once a little girl enters the picture who Sully later names Boo, the citizens of the monster world panic. The film focuses on Sully and Mike attempting to hide Boo from the monsters. The main antagonist of this film is Randall, a monster who can camouflage with his environment. He is secretly scaring Boo behind the scenes for unknown reasons. Besides its mysterious main plot, this film is very wholesome. Throughout the film, Sully acts as a dad for Boo, who him and Mike are initially afraid of. The thing I love most about this film are the characters. Sully and Mike have great chemistry. While watching this, I could tell right away they were longtime friends. Randall is a great antagonist. He has a sinister vibe to him. He is clearly envious of Sully's skills as a professional scarer. Another thing I like about this film is Sully's character development. At first he loves his job as a scarer and doesn't think much of it, but later in the film, after seeing Boo cry and reacting to his roar, he questions it. Another thing I love about this movie is the foreshadowing, one of which is Boo's laughing, which causes power outages. This foreshadows the new energy Monsters, Inc. conserves, that being laughter. Another example of this is the scare testing facility that is shown throughout the film. It is later used to fool Mr. Waternoose into thinking he's in Boo's room at the end of the film. And finally, there's the music. The theme for Monsters, Inc. is great. I especially love that the theme has lyrics in the form of a song featuring John Goodman and Billy Crystal, who voice Sully and Mike respectively. The song is played during the credits. Overall, Monsters, Inc. is a movie with a lot of charm and a lot of heart. The ending of the film, where Sully revisits Boo through her fixed door, makes me smile still to this day. The animation in this film still holds up. I like how Sully's fur is detailed. For the time, this film looked great, and nowadays, the film still looks nice. Technology has definitely gotten better, but I still love how this film looks. I really love this film, and honestly it might be my favorite. Well, second favorite behind The Incredibles. Anyway, I want to thank Timothy for letting me be a part of this big video. This has been Shade X, and I hope you all feel nothing but good vibes.
I really love this film, and I'm definitely putting it in the S column. Pleasure to rewatch. I've seen this movie so many times, In the Who is Timothy Smith video, I mentioned Finding Nemo was one of the first movies I ever watched. I can quote this movie from the beginning to end. I know this movie religiously at this point. At the time, this was the highest grossing Pixar film, and it was Pixar's first Oscar win. And I want to mention the Oscars mainly because of Robin Williams, rest in peace.
Makes you think of a French Minnie Mouse with armpit hair smoking a cigarette going, "What are you doing, Michael Eisner? Listen, if you lose Miramax, all you're going to have left is basically a Muppet and a water slide. Crazy for me, huh?"
And it's definitely not the last film to win an Oscar. This film also has some fun behind the scenes footage. Have people go in the water to study how fish move, and having test footage look so good that everyone can tell the difference. Animation that still holds up when rewatching. I annoyed myself quoting literally every line in this movie. Just me reminding myself that I don't have any friends. I gotta stop making jokes like this. But anyway, Marlin and Dory are the people we're following in this journey. Through sharks, whatever this fish is, and jellyfishes. Traveling with sea turtles eaten by a whale, carried by a pelican. I think I really like this film mainly because it's always an adventure every time we cut to Marlin and Dory. And I just enjoy how fun it is. Nemo is stuck at the dentist with Gil, Bubbles, Deb, Peach, Bloat, and Gurgle. I didn't even know that was his name. And the shrimp. No, I didn't forget his name. Anyway, every character in this tank is so fun to be with. And man, the score for this film is so peaceful to listen to. And the ending hits so hard where Nemo goes to Marlin and just hugs as the music takes over. It's just so good. Overall, I mean, come on, still one of my favorite films. I know people might be calling it overrated, but yo, the word overrated is overrated. But anyways, going in the S column. Obviously, disagree with me all you want. Pixar's second Oscar win. Well deserved, and I can definitely say that the 77th Oscars was definitely the best. But back to The Incredibles. I love The Incredibles! Years later, I still think this movie holds up. Scratch that, it's even better than I remember. Visually, I love it, blending the style of the 60s into the modern day world. And man, the score is so iconic that this movie wouldn't be the same without it. And the tone is so good. Yeah, there's funny moments, but this movie can get pretty dark. Like the scene where Helen is attempting to save Bob, but Syndrome sends missiles into Helen's jet. Bob's reaction really makes this scene what it is. He doesn't even bother yelling. You can just see it in his face how truly upset he is. And while we're on the topic, Syndrome is such an amazing villain, with a silly yet impressive backstory, and the action still holds up. The final battle, it's too good. It's crazy how imaginative they were what was that? It's crazy how imaginative they were with the scene. And the acting, when Bob and Helly started arguing, it felt so real. Even the smaller moments had great acting. Now it's time for me to pass it to another guest. I'm just gonna call you King, my bad.
Alright, so two things I gotta get across. One, I am pretty new to the game, so go easy on your boy. And literally everything that happens in this movie, everyone and their mama been said about the movie. Like, honestly, I feel the same way, so I'm not going to go into every detail, but I will be talking about things I liked, small moments I noticed, and every detail, you know, that I just like picked up from watching it, because this is Tim's channel, and I ain't trying to give bro more work than needed. Thanks again for letting me on, homie. So, with that being said, this is Kang of Big Bruh Tunes, or Big Bruh 97 on Twitter. And I'm here to talk about Pixar's The Incredibles. Let's get right into this. Alright, so right off the bat, The Incredibles was the most adult Pixar movie at the time. Now, when I say adult, I mean as in adult entertainment, not mature. Although this movie is definitely that. It really has a lot of adult themes, such as, you know, cheating, brutal PG, leaning on PG-13 death, alcohol, and some spicy, you know, scenes. But aside from that, the movie's great. Some stuff I even think works especially well today, now that I'm more, you know, now that I'm an adult and an avid comic book reader, such as, you know, the references to Alan Moore's Watchmen with the band on mask and capes, and overall just a great movie that pays tribute to the golden and silver age of comic book heroes, specifically the Fantastic Four, Doom Patrol, but especially the Fantastic Four, you know, because look at the characters. Also, out of curiosity, can you really sue someone if they didn't want to be saved? Like, my nigga, are you good? Like, I get the damages to the city, Mr. Incredible is a hazard. They even expand on that a bit in the sequel, along with all the other issues and criminal acts some superheroes have done. But oh boy, Bob saved this dude's life. Is there really such a thing as non-consensual saving? Please let me know if that's a thing or not, because I'm confused. Like, this man has some serious issues. He tried to kill himself. He needs to be locked up. Put in the mental, get this man some mental help, y'all, for real. In conclusion, The Incredibles is an amazing movie, and in my opinion, one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. It shows Pixar at their best and most mature, showing off great characters, great action and cinematography, and especially a wonderful, heartwarming story with some nice cheeks in between. But those are my takes for now. Again, if you want to see the movie yourself, I recommend Disney Plus or picking up a copy of it on DVD or Blu-ray, or just looking it all up on YouTube. The whole movie's basically there, but I digress. Anyways, I'm gonna bring this back to Timothy. I've been your host, Kang of Big Bro Tunes, and I'll be back later to talk about The Incredibles 2. And by the way, despite how much praise I give the original, the sequel is my favorite for personal reasons. But I'll get into that soon enough. Back to the homie Tim.
The Incredibles, definitely one of my favorites. Obviously in the S column. Yeah, a problem with it? Let's fight about it. Or leave an incredibly long comment. I'm not gonna read it. Sorry to break it to you. What? What? It's 2 in the morning, bro. I'm tired. Here we have Pixar's most controversial franchise. Pixar lost to Happy Feet at the Oscars. I haven't seen Happy Feet in years, so I'm not sure how to feel about that. It did pretty good at the box office, and at the time, this was Pixar's longest film, almost 2 hours long. But, you know what, I'm gonna say it. I like the first Cars film. No, for real, I really dig this film. Even for a film that is 15 years old, it looks amazing. And I like how most of the landscapes looks like Cars. I also really like the town of Radiator Springs. Just a small town that doesn't get much attention, as it should, until the end of the film. Doc Hudson is such a great mentor to McQueen, and I love how he just pops up at the final race to mentor. In fact, the final race in itself was such a great scene. I love the fact that Lightning McQueen gives up first place just to help out Stripe, after Check cheats. I think my biggest problem is something that a lot of people talk about, and that's Mater. He's not that bad in this film, but his scenes aren't the best. But I do think McQueen and Mater's friendship is overall nice. I think the first Cars film is decent. It has problems, but yes, I had a good time. Okay, hopefully Ace will send me his audio, which I'm pretty sure he didn't, but if you did, congratulations, here's your part.
Yo, just got done watching Cars, and I think I really understand why this blew up so much. Just by the soundtrack alone, the movie is really appealing to the American public. Cause I'm just like, bro, how you have a country soundtrack and then you have a movie about cars? I'm just like, yeah, I low-key understand why this movie was popular. Now, what I don't get is like, why did the movie need to be about cars? I guess just for aesthetic purposes. But with that being said, it didn't need to be cars, but since it was, it kind of just made it blow up. And I just really like the animation as well. Soundtrack is really good, and it's just nice overall. Like the visuals for like, what did this come out, 2003? I think this dropped like 2003. This shit is crazy. Like the same space reflections and the textures on the roads and shit. Like, this is next gen. Like, this is, I don't know why when movies go full CGI, especially back in the day, just looks better than what was on display in the live action ones. You think it would be almost reversed because you have less to usually model, but I guess you can work with you can work by a style by itself and make it look better. But the graphics or the CGI back in 2003, that looks way better than anything I've ever seen. Well, yo, anything better.
I'll put Cars in the B column. I really have fun watching this film. Now, this is the first Pixar film I saw in theaters. Before anyone asks, I was born in 2001. I wasn't even 1 year old when Monsters Inc. came out. I was too young to remember if I saw Finding Nemo, I didn't see The Incredibles and Cars, so this is the first one. Brad Bird returns in the directing chair to direct 2007's Ratatouille. And I'm gonna say this now because people don't listen. This rat's name is Remy, not Ratatouille. Ratatouille is the name of the dish. Now that we got that settled, I love this film. Ratatouille makes anyone want to cook. And man, the food in this film looks really good. I love the concept of rat cooking. And it's not Remy making random food, like he makes gourmet meals. That's one thing I'll always commend Pixar for. They take the most weirdest concepts and then make it work. Well, sometimes, but I can't say what that film is yet. Ratatouille is also really funny. The scene where Linguini is drunk and Skinner's trying to get him to admit that a rat is helping him is just hilarious. Okay, I know this is short, but I really just wanted to pass it on to my guest, the Wacky Deli. Take it away, bro.
So today I've been invited to this video to spit bars about the illustrious Pixar entry, Ratatouille. Of course, you know, everybody knows the story of the little rat that wanted to follow his dreams and become a famous chef, of course. But, you know, we don't often talk about what makes it so good. Assuming that how I choose to come to bat for it will determine how it is discussed in, you know, the rest of this video, I can say that Ratatouille is very deserving of the praise that it's received in the past decade or two in ways that is very difficult to describe. Now, why is that exactly? I mean, you know, it probably doesn't look that much different than any other Pixar movie about talking trains or bugs or feelings, right? Like, obviously on an aesthetic level, you know, it does have a few differences that you wouldn't probably expect from a movie of this caliber, from the studio. You know, the mood lighting and the texturing, I think, does get a bump. And, of course, based on the content, you know, the subjects featured in the movie itself, it does seem to take on a more mature tack. Maybe just a little bit. But the substance of the messaging and the themes in the movie itself doesn't set itself that far apart from its peers. You know, it's focused on individualism and the importance of following your dreams and being the best you that you can be and all that jazz. But what I think really would set it apart in theory is not even what it says, of course, but how it chooses to say it. Despite the deeper and relatable themes that Pixar movies are famous for acknowledging, at the end of the day, a lot of them usually do maintain softer and lighter tones and presentations and things. Ratatouille, to me at least, fully embraces that dark, grim, dirty, grungy reality of living. And it's not the first, won't be the last to do so, but the way that it chose to was really interesting. And of course it emphasized, you know, when true humanity and beauty comes out of really grim or even just mundane elements. I'd argue that's a pretty good recurring theme of Brad Bird, you know, the dude that directed Ratatouille. You know, he knows how to draw the beautiful out of a lot of weird and crazy shit. But beyond that, right, the movie really does speak to the principles of being the best you know. Anyone can cook really does have a true meaning. It's not just fluffy guff. You know, it has tangible definition within this world and, you know, our own. Before I recorded this, I got to see Ratatouille, the TikTok musical, and I mean, I don't know if you've checked that out, but it is pretty much the defining end result of a movie like this. It's really strange, but really beautiful. But in closing, Ratatouille is my favorite Pixar film. And while it is very hard to discuss in tangible terms, it's not difficult to see why it is so beloved. It hits all the right buttons. It's got likable characters, it's got excellent staging, it's got a beautiful score, but moreover, you know, it has a message that really can stick to your bones and probably stay with you till the end of time, if you're lucky.
Overall, I really love Ratatouille, which is why I'm putting it in the A column. A real fun time. The next up is WALL-E, and before I start reviewing anything, WALL-E is in the S column. Alright, so this movie is amazing. This movie looks gorgeous, and for the first few minutes we're in a wasteland and it looks really good. WALL-E is pretty much a love story between Wally and Eve, and it's pretty nice, while also having a nice message in there about the environment. WALL-E's humor is so funny to me basically because most of the jokes are done without words, and you're able to pull off something like that, I think it's cool. And WALL-E is simply a likable character. Like, how can you not like him? Alright, we have another guest, Offbeat Kiki. It's a real pleasure to have you here. Take it away.
Hey, I'm Offbeat Kiki, and I'm here to talk to you about the 2008 film WALL-E. WALL-E has been one of my favorite Pixar movies since the day I saw it. When you boil it down, it's a story about two robots named WALL-E and Eve, or Eva, as he calls her, saving the future of mankind because humans have grown too lazy to save themselves. This movie has always stuck out to me because while most Disney Pixar movies feel constructed with the goal of escapism, taking the viewer out of their daily life and into something fantastical with some degree of magic or talking animals or otherworldliness involved, WALL-E is a glimpse into one variety of a hyper-capitalist dystopian future that could befall the human race if we continue the endless cycle of consumption and waste creation. I mean, WALL-E is there to clean up an entire planet of human-generated trash. If you've ever been to a landfill and seen piles of waste a mile across, you know a fraction of that existentially terrifying reality. I went to one with a friend once to dispose of a couch, and I never wore those shoes again. It's pretty out there for Disney Pixar to release a movie about corporations destroying the planet. The environmental message of this movie only feels more and more important the older I get. When it came out, the idea of humans being soft-boned blob people completely reliant on technology seemed far-fetched to me, but now it doesn't seem completely out of reach. Many people spend 12+ hours a day on their devices, many people eat unhealthy food every day, and sadly, many people do not challenge what they are told to think, say, or do. I'm not saying we're all going to be in hover chairs in 100 years, and I'm not trying to be all phone bad, but in the past few years online, I think many of us have seen this type of behavior being displayed. When you realize that in-universe, humans canonically used to look like we do right now, as shown in the recordings that the characters watch throughout the film, the notion that human bodies have deteriorated into blob-like corpulence, carried around and catered to at every second by technology, becomes even more shocking. Despite tackling these themes, this movie isn't a downer. It's a fantastical romp through space, with well-established stakes, great pacing, and a story that entrances me from start to finish. Pixar really gets to show off their visual storytelling skills. That shot of WALL-E and Eva in outer space is one of the most beautiful scenes I can think of. And despite the two robots not speaking very much in the film, I find them more endearing and emotionally robust than most animated characters. I think this is a Pixar movie that everyone should see for themselves at least once. Thanks for having me, Tim.
I already ranked the film, but WALL-E was a fun time. A film everyone loves to talk about. Well, more specifically, the first 10 minutes. Now, Up is a really good film, and yes, the first 10 minutes is really fantastic and emotional. But afterwards, we cut to Fredrickson living by himself, and after getting into an incident with a construction worker, he's forced to move to a retirement home. But he ain't having it, and he makes his house filled with the balloons. And Russell is there. See what I'm talking about? Pixar is so good at this, taking the most obscure concepts and turning them into something good. Up is a great time. I really love the jokes, and I love the characters. Of course, not every joke lands, but I found myself laughing most of the time. And I do like Mr. Fredrickson and Russell's chemistry, especially in the ending, where they're eating ice cream and they're just pointing out the color of the cars. And the film ends with Fredrickson's house on Paradise Falls. It's a perfect ending. That wraps it up for me. Now let me take you to my man Ramen, the homie that allowed me to be part of his South Park video. So take it away, bro.
Hello, mi amigos. Ramen coming at ya. You're probably wondering why I'm here. I'm here to talk a little bit about the movie Up and why it's my favorite Pixar movie. The plot for the movie goes, a 78-year-old grumpy balloon salesman named Carl Fredrickson is about to achieve his lifelong dream. In order for him to achieve his dream, he ties a ton of balloons to his house and flies away to the South American wilderness. Out of nowhere, a wilderness explorer named Russell becomes a stay-away on Carl's flying house. As a result of Carl not keeping an eye out for anyone on his front porch, Russell and Carl go on a journey full of dangers and threats. Throughout the journey, Russell and Carl sort of have this father and son dynamic. There's even a point where Carl helps Russell get his merit badge for helping an old man. This movie, to this day, still makes me cry. The opening of the movie, conveys sadness in a way that I think Pixar is known for. When you watch the death of Fred's wife, you can see the pain in his eyes, that they will never get to achieve their dream together. The death of Fred's wife sort of becomes motivation for Fred to get his house on the top of a mountain in South America, all while avoiding his childhood hero turned bad guy. I think Russell is like the missing piece in Fred's life, as I think Fred sees a little of him in Russell. I pick this movie because it has that Pixar charm and the right amount of emotion that makes you feel good. It has heart and comedy, and has a message that no matter how old you are, you can always achieve your dream. Thank you, Timothy, for letting me talk about my favorite Pixar movie. My name is Ramen. You have a good night.
Overall, I really love Up, and I'm definitely putting it in the A column. Now we entered the 2010s, and Pixar started off with a bang. The third Toy Story film, coming out 11 years after the second film, who was texting me at this time of the hour. And in my opinion, I thought it was worth the wait. This film acknowledges the fact that Andy's getting older and he doesn't play with toys anymore. And it causes the toys to worry, because they think they're getting thrown out. Which I really like how it's only the first 10 minutes and you already feel sad for the toys. They even feel sad about the fact that most of the other toys are gone. But after a mistake of Andy's mom thinking the toys are trash, the toys decide to go to daycare. And that's where the rest of the film takes place, which leads to a lot of funny moments, and we're introduced to Bonnie, and we find out that Lotso the bear was the surprise villain. And man, this movie gets crazy. Like, Pixar wants you to know we're gonna make you cry. The toys' plan is an escape, which for the most part, it works up until the garbage man comes up. We find out that Lotso's is evil mainly because he was abandoned years ago, and he wouldn't really let go. But anyway, the toys are at the dump, and after a few things, we finally make it to where the toys are close to burning alive. This scene here, everyone is simply accepting the fact that this might be it. It's just too good. I was 9 years old when I first saw this film. My heart was pounding like crazy. But the aliens save them at the nick of time and then make it back to Andy's house. And here's another scene that gets me. Andy's mom pauses for a second and starts to cry after seeing Andy's room completely empty. That's a real good scene. And then we have a final scene where Andy gives his toy to Bonnie and Woody says the final line.
So long, partner.
Oh yeah, Manuel D is in this part too as well.
Oh look, I'm back, and I'm talking about Toy Story 3 now, so that's cool. Now I think everybody can agree that Toy Story 3 is a really, really good movie. But if I'm being honest, I think it is a bit overhyped, but I still think it's a really good movie, so let me explain why I think this. As foreshadowed in Toy Story 2, Andy has finally grown up. He's 17 now and is on his way to college in just a few days. His mom is putting pressure on him to get rid of his old toys, either by throwing them out or in the garage, donating them to needy children, or simply putting them in the attic. Woody, the brave leader of the toys and Andy's favorite, manages to dodge a bullet somewhat, but puts himself in the line with fire when Buzz Lightyear and the other toys are accidentally drawn, and then they get wound up in Sunnyside Daycare when they're welcomed by open arms with the new toys by Lotso. And if you haven't noticed yet, Lotso is kind of the main antagonist, which is kind of a twist villain that I kind of saw coming from a mile away. Like, come on, guys. He seems way too nice, and somebody way too nice is often evil. Like, come on, we learned this in fucking Toy Story 2, like, what the fuck? So it turns out that the Sunnyside Daycare is actually a prison, and Lotso obviously runs it. So of course the toys have to find a way to escape, which surprisingly enough, Woody decides to run from because he doesn't want to be in the daycare. Which, good for him, I guess. Which then he meets up with a little girl called Bonnie and her new toys. Which the new toys kind of show that at the end of the day, well, first of all, they show that Lotso's kind of the dick. But they also learn the lesson that at the end of the day, while Andy is leaving, there's still new kids around and for them to have fun. Which is something that I really like. And to be honest, when this movie showed the final scene, yeah, I think everyone can agree that that scene is absolutely fucking beautiful. And definitely a great ending to this trilogy until Toy Story 4 came out. Which is great, which is really great. Now let's talk about the animation. The animation in this movie is fucking incredible. It still holds on very well to this day, even after a fucking decade, my guy. Man, this movie came out in a decade. Jesus Christ. The voice acting from this movie is absolutely incredible. Tom Hanks, Tim Allen did an absolutely incredible job in this. Now, why did I say that I prefer Toy Story 4 and 2 to this movie? Well, that kind of seems like the premise. Listen, I'm not the biggest fan of Prison Breaks movies. I'm sorry. But, like, I'm not. And then we have the villain, which, the fucking monkey. That shit traumatized me when I was a kid. I know that's not an actual criticism towards the movie, but, like, fuck, that shit traumatized me. I couldn't even watch the movie when I was a kid. The monkey scared the shit out of me. But that's just a nitpick. But while I still have high nostalgia factor for Toy Story 2, and a bit more respect for Toy Story 4, I think that everybody can agree that Toy Story 3 is a film that is inevitably about a child growing up and putting away his toys. There are also themes about effects of loss, love, and friendship. Even though I talked shit about him earlier, I still think that Lotso is a very well-written antagonist. He is threatening, but also seems like there's glares of him having a redemption until the end of the movie where he's like, yeah, no, he's still a dick. So at the end of the day, while I still prefer Toy Story 2 and just by a hair Toy Story 4 more than this movie, everybody can agree that Toy Story 3 is an amazing movie with its lighthearted humor, awesome action scenes, and stirring emotional moments that just might bring a few tears to your eyes. Toy Story 3 is an incredibly awesome and fucking incredible movie. Oh yeah, you notice how I didn't mention the final ending to this movie? Yeah, that seems is like a fucking masterpiece, but like, it doesn't hold up the movie that well, if I'm being honest. So yeah, Toy Story 3, great movie. I still prefer Toy Story 2. Anyway, that's all from me. I want to thank Mr. Timothy Reviews for bringing me onto this collab. Blessings, brother, blessings. I hope to collab with you one day. I might actually bring you on a secret project, wink wink, nudge nudge. But hey, if you enjoyed what you saw from me, then go check out my YouTube channel where I talk about media such as cartoons and video games. But anyway, that's all from me, and enjoy the rest of the video.
I mean, come on. I had to get Toy Story 3 in the S column. Pixar is on a roll. I wonder what their next film is. It's Cars 2. Okay, before I tackle that, I want to do a quick intermission. This video is already long enough. This is the first time in a while where another company made a better film. I'm gonna keep this short because all that can be said about this has already been said, considering the fact that I used to actually like this film when it was released. But then again, I never paid attention to the first film. But after rewatching that movie for this video, I could definitely understand why this wasn't everybody's cup of tea. They have a scene where McQueen wins a race and comes back to Radiator Spring, and after he says hi to everybody, he immediately goes to a picture of Doc, and Mater says, "That's for sure." See, that's a good scene. And they also have a great setup for a great sequel, with McQueen going around the world to race Francisco. But the rest of the film is bogged down by this whole unnecessary spy plotline. I enjoyed the chase sequence at the airport, but besides that, nah, I'm not a big fan of this film. Now, for some reason, Buster wanted to talk about this film. He dropped out because the movie's so bad that he didn't want to talk about it. Yeah, this is pretty obvious, but I'm putting Cars in the D column. Not truly deserving the F, but it's pretty bad. Another short one. I'm sorry, y'all. I had to remind myself this was a Pixar film. I honestly think that Brave was seriously just an okay film. And this film, in my opinion, had a lot of potential. Like, yo, they got the director of The Prince of Egypt on here. Literally the best movie of all time. But this movie falls flat when, of course, Merida turns her mom into a bear. This makes me mad at Merida because we're supposed to like this character. And she does things like this, it's kind of hard to like her. Yeah, I understand that her mother was strict, and Merida didn't mean to turn her mom into a bear, but she still gave her mom the potion in the first place. I don't know, it's just me thing. And I'm pretty sure there's people out here who really like this film. And I was probably missing something. And I won't hate on you for thinking so. But for me, I'll give Brave a C. It's alright. What the heck? Why did I scream that? Uh-oh, here we are. Alright, now let me not give out the wrong impression because I really dig this film. Just not as much as the first. I mean, yeah, I was disappointed that it wasn't a sequel, but I still enjoy seeing the monsters going into college. I even enjoyed the fact that Mike and Sully weren't immediately friends. They kinda hated each other and slowly grew a connection to each other. And it was the complete opposite of Randall. They were homies at first and then they grew apart, basically because Randall was part of the cool kids. The main gist of this film is Mike and Sully trying to win the scare games, but they eventually get booted because Sully cheated. And I don't know why, but I love the scene where Mike and Sully enter into the real world. And it gets intense. One of my favorite moments. Okay, so here we have another guest to speak on Monsters University, and that's Dan oh shit. The Dan the Man Show. Take it away, bro.
Monsters University, for all intents and purposes, should not be a good film. It's a sequel, or I guess in this case, a prequel, to the much-loved classic Monsters, Inc., and it was released 12 years after the original, so there is a sense of nostalgia bait to it. And I won't lie, there's definitely moments that felt like it was pandering to those that watched the original film. I still don't get why they had to shove in the abominable snowman at all. I remember when I first saw this film back when it released in 2013, and I thought to myself, yeah, it was an okay film. However, upon rewatching it again for this review, I was surprised with how much I found myself enjoying the film, and how many aspects of this film I thought were handled very well. The idea of exploring Mike and Sully's relationship when they first met was a really good idea, and I'm glad to say that it was executed pretty well in this film. I like how they don't just become friends when they first meet. It actually takes a bit of time to get to that point. At first, they're students who acknowledge one another, but don't really have a connection. A bit further into the film, they actually start to become rivals since Mike is angry at Sully for constantly belittling him and relying on his legacy alone instead of working hard. And Sully is annoyed with Mike for doing better than him in the scare class and making him look incompetent in front of his fraternity. This all culminates at the scaring final exam, where their rivalry causes them both to be failed from the scaring school, and Sully to be expelled from his fraternity. The movie then shifts to a redemption arc for both of them, joining the worst fraternity on campus with the ultimatum of if they win the scare games, they'll all be let into the scaring program. This part kind of drags. I don't really care about the fraternity characters, but this is where we start to see Mike and Sully start to bond more, and I like how naturally their friendship is handled. They're forced to share a small room, and at first they're annoyed and constantly getting in each other's way. But after seeing how hard Mike has worked and how his tactics have helped them thus far, Sully actually apologizes for how he treated Mike and how uncooperative he's been. It's a small moment, but I think it's well telegraphed, and their friendship starts to blossom from there. They get to a point where they know each other's routines and personalities so well that they can swiftly move around the small room and not get in each other's way. There's many other things that I really enjoy about this film, like the fact that it all takes place on a university, which is a primary setting that's mostly untouched in terms of animation, and the fake out with Randall at the beginning. Sidebar, I actually really do like Randall's inclusion in this film. I was nervous it was going to feel forced and tacked on, but it actually works out surprisingly well, and watching him shift from a friend to an enemy has a very natural flow to it. That being said, I do wish we got more of him, as he's prominent in the beginning, but by the middle up until the Scare Games final event, he's really nowhere to be seen. Yes, I'm aware of the irony there. But I wanted to finish this segment off by talking about my favorite thing about the movie: the message of failure. Throughout the film, we constantly see these characters fail at things that mean a lot to them. Each time, however, they just pick themselves back up and keep moving forward. This is seen best at the end of the film. After getting expelled from the school, we see Mike and Sully on a bus to who knows where, when they're stopped by the dean. We've seen this dean as a hard case for most of the film, being very strict and harsh. When I first saw this scene, I thought that this was going to be one of those "I was wrong about you, you are both worthy" scenes that had played out hundreds of thousands of times before, and she was going to let them back into the school. But no. To my shock, she sticks to her word, and she does say that she was wrong about Mike and Sully and was impressed by their teamwork, but they remain expelled by the end of the film. Needless to say, my jaw was agape. The film went in a direction that I really didn't see coming, and I was absolutely along for the ride. But it isn't an unhappy ending for our heroes, since they figure that there's more than one way to become a scarer, and they start their jobs as mailroom employees at Monsters, Inc. I love this message and ending so much. It teaches us that failure is an inevitable part of life, and not everything will work out. And that's okay. It's okay to feel sad and angry that things didn't go as planned and you failed. That's totally natural. But if it's something that you really care about, then the only thing you can do is get back up and keep trying. It might not work out, it might never work out. But if you don't keep trying, you'll never know if you had what it takes to make your dreams come true. Monsters University definitely isn't as good as its predecessor, but unlike something like Incredibles 2, which I found to be massively disappointing, or Toy Story 4, which I thought to be completely unnecessary, which, I mean, it is, it really is. Monsters University is an enjoyable film with an important message, and is a worthy addition to the Monsters Inc. timeline.
Overall, I put Monsters University in the B column. It's good. Now after this, Pixar took a year off, and man, they came back with a banger. After this, I have 8 movies left. What was I thinking? Okay, Inside Out. I was so obsessed to see this movie because I was wondering what it was about. And when I finally saw it, I can definitely say I really love this film. Especially since I had no idea how you can make a movie about 5 emotions. How can you make this work? And Pixar made it work so perfectly. It's so creative in the way it shows what happens in your head. Like how we forget certain things, a train of thoughts, imagination, and the 4 islands that make up your personality. And of course, we have the 5 main emotions: joy, sadness, anger, fear, and disgust. And I think that is interesting that they take away joy and sadness for the majority of the film. And Riley doesn't really know how to react. And I love how they try to push sadness away, and Joy realizes that most of Riley's happy moments happen because of sadness, letting us know that it's normal to be sad. And Pixar handles it really well. Overall, a very entertaining film. I'll put Inside Out in the A column. A very good rewatch. Pixar, for the first time, released 2 films in 1 year, and it's The Good Dinosaur, another Pixar film that has mixed opinions. I even had the idea of making a video of this movie, but I canceled it due to this video. Now we can finally talk about it. Compliments first. I can obviously say that this movie looks absolutely gorgeous. There's so many good looking shots in this film. It still blows my mind how many of these shots look so real. Like seriously, the opening scene where Arlo's dad is watering the plants, everything in the scene looks so good. I could literally make a 10-minute video talking about how good the visuals are. And I also think that the score in this film is truly underrated. And I personally think that this movie's score is so peaceful and beautiful to listen to. Like seriously, the first song, Homestead, is so good. Like y'all should listen to it. I'll most likely get copyright strike if I play it. And I think the moral for this film was pretty decent. I mean, it could have been taught a bit better, but it's alright. Okay, now for the flaws. I personally think that this movie looks so good that the characters do not fit this world. Arlo and this realistic looking landscape do not clash well at all in my opinion. And I think this is probably the least funniest Disney movie. I didn't find myself laughing that much in this movie. Not saying I always have to laugh in every Pixar film, but the jokes in this film kinda don't work. I think this film is kinda good. It's just not the Pixar film I find myself going back to the most, but I did enjoy it in some degree. I give The Good Dinosaur the B column. Pretty fun-ish. Okay, now for the long-awaited sequel to Finding Nemo. And I can definitely say it was a bit disappointing. It's not a bad film though. I enjoyed it, but comparing it to the first film, I didn't think much of it. The director Andrew Stanton, okay, watched Finding Nemo for the first time in forever and asked himself, where did Dory come from? And that's pretty much the premise of this film. Dory loses her parents at a very young age, and she continues to search for them up until she meets Marlin. 1 year later, Dory is starting to remember her parents, and they head to California, and the rest of the film takes place there. I forgot the name of the place, my bad. But we run into multiple characters like Hank, Bailey, and Destiny. They're funny characters. Visually, this movie looks absolutely gorgeous, which I mean is Pixar, come on. And Dory's parents, Charlie and Jenny, are really nice. And man, look at the scene where Dory's parents look so upset, and when they finally see her, it's such a satisfying reaction. And it's an emotional moment too. My biggest problem is just the simple fact that this film isn't as funny as the first. I laughed of course, but it's nowhere near as funny as the original. I feel like the movie is just missing something. Like the movie doesn't need a cameo or a callback in every scene, but it feels empty in some parts. I can definitely say the ending shot is such a good scene. Dory goes to the edge of the reef with Marlin, and they just admire the view. Such a great ending. So I'll put Finding Dory in the B column. A fun trip of nostalgia, just missing some stuff. Alright, so this movie had such a dark teaser trailer, which was really misleading if you really think about it. And then the official trailer came out, and it changed everybody's mind. The movie was met with very mediocre reviews, and it was quickly forgotten because another Pixar film was coming out. But, I'm gonna say it, I like this film. I tried my best to find things I did not like in this film, but I ended up really liking it, way more than I thought. It wasn't the dark Cars film everyone was suspecting, but I like what they did. Races are dealing with the fact that they're getting old. McQueen starts to lose, and it leads to him getting into a bad wreck. Now this scene is really intense. When McQueen is in the air, it's completely silent, and the only thing you can hear is his breathing. I think it's perfect. For a while, it causes McQueen to take a break, and he legit gets depressed. And I love what they did to McQueen's new mentor, Cruz Ramirez. She was there to help, and then she becomes a racer, and McQueen becomes the mentor. That is just a great ending to this trilogy. Following the footsteps of Doc Hudson. I think one of my problems is that this movie has certain scenes that overstay its welcome. But I love it sometimes because it's some older cars telling McQueen that he's getting old, and he needs to accept that. I can always say that the Cars trilogy, besides the second film, I really think is a decent film series. I feel like it doesn't get nearly as much attention as it should. Come on, y'all give Cars one more chance. If you don't like it, it's not my fault. I'm putting Cars 3 in the B column. I really like this film. Ah man, Coco is goated. I love this movie. Everything about this film just screams beauty. Visually, it's amazing, and the music is so good. The family hates music due to a family member, Miguel's grandfather, apparently ran away to pursue his music career and never came back. But Miguel loves music, and he looks up to his role model, Ernesto de la Cruz. I know I jacked that up, but don't hate. And he thinks that's his grandfather. So once he touches de la Cruz's guitar, he's taken to the land of the dead. And we run into a bunch of Manuel's family members, and it's nice to see them all. And we see a random character by the name of Hector, and his family doesn't talk about him at all. And after a while, he will just disappear. Let me skip ahead a bit. So Miguel makes it to de la Cruz, and we find out that he wasn't his grandfather. As a matter of fact, Hector was, and de la Cruz killed him. And the rest of the film is them stopping de la Cruz and grabbing the photo. He's exposed, and Miguel makes it back, and Coco remembers her father. The story for this movie is so good. It's such an amazing ending. Alright, so Artis has some facts to spit about this film.
Sup Streaks, I'm Artis, and what can I say about Coco that hasn't been said already? It's a love letter to Dia de los Muertos and Mexican culture. Just about the only time Disney Pixar portrayed a non-European culture with justice. This film is dripping in tradition, from the food, decorations, and even the dreaded chancla. Coco might be your standard, I'm not like the rest of my family movies, but its heart and storytelling is what makes it my favorite Pixar film. The story is about Miguel, a young boy who wants to be a musician in a family that despises music, and they make shoes for a living. But after discovering he might be the great-great-grandson of an infamous musician, that's where his journey to the land of the dead starts. And throughout the film, Miguel learns the importance of family. This movie might have come out in 2017, but I don't want to give too much away. Just know that when I first saw it, the twist definitely took me by surprise. During the second viewing, I noticed the little details sprinkled in to mislead the audience. And every time I watch this movie, I cry like a baby. Especially at the ending scene. This film has beautiful music, which can be enjoyed in both Spanish and English. The details in the animation is also a visual treat. Once Miguel gets to the land of the dead, you see this gorgeous array of lights and the colors blend together so naturally. This movie is pure eye candy. But I will say, the moral of family is forever. Always trust your family. Family comes first, even at the cost of your own dreams, yada yada yada. Doesn't sit well with me because not everyone comes from a loving, accepting family. Most people come from broken homes, or their family is just downright toxic and have to cut ties with them for their own good. I wasn't a fan of Miguel's family literally smashing his dreams of becoming a musician just because one family member screwed up years ago. They shouldn't have shunned music altogether, but instead guide Miguel and help him stay cautious on his journey of becoming a musician. For example, when I told my uncles I'm starting to do YouTube for fun and yucks, something to pass the time while I watch the world just wither away, they didn't discourage it. They actually encouraged me and warned me about trolling and not letting numbers hold power over me. They know I'm creative and capable, and so is Miguel, and his family knows that. That would have been a much different story, but I love Coco all the same. So after Black Steven Universe here wraps up his video, you'll do me a small favor and remember me. Though I have to say goodbye, remember me. Don't let it make you cry. For every time I'm far away, I hold you in my heart. I sing a sacred song to you each time where we are apart. Remember me. I'm sorry, Tim. I can't do it.
Did you just call me the Black Steven Universe? Coco is such a great film, and I enjoy watching it. You already know what that means. I'll give it an S. Talk about a sequel I wanted to be better than the original. The visuals were good, as I expected, and I think the villain in the screensaver has such a cool concept, taking over TV screens and hypnotizing people to take control of them. And what we got? I like The Incredibles too. The action is fun, the characters are back, and it was able to find a plot that wasn't too unnecessary. A man named Winston Dever wants to make supers legal again, and brings Elastigirl to the plate to change the politician's mind on supers, and Bob is a stay-at-home dad, while Elastigirl is doing her superhero thing. We see the villain in the screensaver, which I love all the scenes that involve the screensaver, up until the reveal, which we'll get into later. The film has great action, I really love it. I'm sorry, I had to say it. I don't like the screensaver. The reveal was way too obvious, and her plan makes no sense. She wants to make supers legal, but they already are legal. So why did she help Winston set up this program in the first place? And why do people hate supers so much? It's understandable in the first film, but in this film, it's like everyone just whining. Dicker in the first film said he can cover the expenses of whatever the Incredibles get into, and bam, they're shut down. Like, what? I don't want to nitpick this movie to death, so welcoming back a guest from earlier. Take it away.
Hey, what's good, y'all? The King is back and here to shed some light on the sequel we thought would never cover. So sit down, relax, and enjoy one of my favorite movies of all time. Meanwhile, though, Elastigirl out of here fighting crime, solving the mystery of the screensaver, that's a new villain by the way, and looking good in that great costume, and the money shots, my nigga, woo! The way she rides the motorcycle chasing after the villains and saving the prime minister, like, not only are these action sequences amazing with the new and updated animation, but damn, Elastigirl's out here looking fine, y'all. This is why I much prefer the movie over the other, like, it's got good comedy, non-stop action, glory shots of baby girl Helen. Woo, let's go. Ooh, man. Okay. Oh, sorry about that. Alright, so this is the part where I gotta acknowledge the flaws of the movie and why a lot of people think it's a trash sequel, Just let me put on my, critical glasses here. Alright. The villain is weak sauce, my nigga. Compared the screensaver to Syndrome, and you can tell which villain is superior. And it doesn't help that this is part of Disney's, many issues with the surprise villain trope. And this is sad because the message of screens and perspective is a really unique message that doesn't get talked about much in media. I'm also glad that it's not some typical, screens are, screen technology are ruining the youth and our way of life, or whatever. I just wish they had a more compelling villain, my man. Like, come on. Screensaver, you trash. Another issue is how everyone else is utilized in this movie, specifically Dash, Violet, and even the homie Frozen. Also, did I forget to mention all of the new heroes that this movie introduced? Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start with Violet. There was no need for Violet and Tony's basic ass drama. It didn't really do much for Violet as a character, and it only gave Bob just more things to do as a parent, I guess. Dash was just there, as usual. I think the only one who had any growth, both physically and metaphorically, was Jack. Just based on him utilizing his powers to train with Edna and using them in final battle. Like, I don't know. Frozone definitely could have done more, and that's the worst thing. It seems like they were gonna do that when he showed up at the house to help out the kids. It seemed like he was gonna do something, but the movie was like, nah, mind control that nigga. We can't have these black folks taking over the movie now, can we? And that's once again Hollywood being on that bobo. Stay woke, kings and queens. God. Oh, sorry. Finally, you got all these new heroes who look interesting and have interesting powers, but I can't remember any of them by the end of the movie. Also, look at these cool ass powers they got. The only one hero to have any ounce of character was hold up, I actually have to look up her name real quick. Okay, her name is Void. Yeah, Void did the most because she actually utilized her powers to help Elastigirl catch Screenslaver. She managed to showcase her personality when introducing herself to Helen. Even when she was just standing next to Violet for a few seconds, I remembered her for that too. And like, I got nothing from those other superheroes. Who else do we know? We know Foreign Guy, Brick Lady, Old Man, Owl Nigga, and big black Russian dude voiced by Phil Lamar. Yeah, that dude's voiced by Phil Lamar. That's the most memorable thing I could think of. But despite me and everyone else's criticism, I do still really like the movie. And there's still plenty of love in it. I love seeing Bob and Helen switch parental roles. I love the new style in animation. And I especially love how the film is a bit more adult at times, with some scenes of the characters cursing and even implied alcoholic drinking. That took me out for a second, my nigga. Hold up. Overall, The Incredibles 2 is still a fun time. Not perfect, but a solid film nonetheless. Especially if you're a fan of Elastigirl. Just, wow. But anyways, this is my last review of Pixar films. Once again, this is Kang of Big Bruh Tunes. Thanks again for having me on, Tim. Peace out, y'all.
Besides those things I mentioned, this is still a solid film. It's in the A column for me. Oh boy, we're probably going to be here for a while. Okay, so when I first saw this film in theaters, I thought this film was just good, nothing more. And I for some reason thought Hidden World was a better film. Hidden World was a good film, just saying. But the more I kept rewatching Toy Story 4, the more I liked it. It eventually got to the point where I can definitely say that Toy Story 4 is probably my favorite in the franchise. Most of you may disagree, but this movie just clicks with me. This movie is basically all about Woody, and I love how they handle it. And I know a lot of people were upset how Bonnie treated Woody in this film. She's a kid. Kids don't play with every toy they have, I promise you that. They eventually get tired of him. We also get a backstory on what happened to Bo Peep. And the opening is so good, where Bo is about to leave, and Woody doesn't want to lose her. Even to the point where he's finna go himself. The first few minutes of this movie is so good, it's just crazy to me. While Bonnie's at kindergarten, she makes a new toy named Forky, who just questions his existence. My fear was that Forky was constantly going to question life the entire film, but he finds his purpose thanks to Woody. We also meet Gabby Gabby, who really just wants a voice box, so she tries to take Woody. And Gabby Gabby's theme is so good to listen to. As a matter of fact, I think this is probably Randy Newman's best work in the Toy Story film. And we of course get the heartfelt ending. Woody decides to stay with Bo Peep and the other lost toys. And yeah, it's a tearful goodbye. And the scene everyone talks about, when Woody and Buzz say their goodbyes. Not like in Toy Story 3, where Woody's going off to college. They don't even say a word to each other, they just hug. And that's just perfect to me. This ending was so sad, even Tom Hanks and Tim Allen started to tear up while recording.
One of the big things that people were wondering about Toy Story 4 was how it was going to top the third movie. I think we can all agree that Toy Story 3 was probably a great ending to a solid trilogy, or even a really good trilogy. But with the announcement of Toy Story 4, we were all asking, where does this series go? Even from the teaser trailer of Toy Story 4, I had my doubts with this film. What's the theme? How is Woody gonna get involved? How are the toys gonna get involved? And after watching the film a few times, I've come to grow and like it. Toy Story 4 is flawed. The one big problem is with Buzz and listening to his voice. I liked it at first, but I didn't really enjoy it. It got a little annoying. But the film Toy Story 4 really focuses on its purpose, not only through Woody, but through some of the main characters. I think the one character that finds the most purpose or realizes the most purpose is Woody. In fact, the main character of this whole quadrilogy. Throughout the Toy Story universe, he's been finding his purpose. I mean, Toy Story 1 is focusing on a new toy and will he be put to the side, but Toy Story 2 through 4 has this idea of purpose. What's the life of a toy? How long will a toy last with a human? Or would a toy rather stay in a museum or be played with for the rest of its life? Or how long will that toy be with a human, even with the guy going to college? There's a lot of questions that Toy Story offers through each of its sequels, and Toy Story 4 focuses on what's the life if you're not going to be played with? Are you worthless, or can you help other toys? And I think that helps with Woody finding Bo Peep. A lot of people, including myself, were figuring out where Bo Peep went, and the beginning scene of the movie really showed what happened with Bo Peep. She basically said that she's done, her time is up with her human. And that's what Woody later on finds out. His time is up with a human. Toys don't just have to be with humans all of their life. They are like the humans. They have to find their own purpose. Just like a son or a daughter doesn't live with their parents their whole life. They have to go out on their own. Woody goes out on his own, not only in the end, but throughout the movie with the new character, Forky. Forky is actually pretty good from the start. He's pretty funny, but the chemistry comes from him and Woody speaking on life and figuring out what a toy's purpose is. But Woody later on finds out what his purpose is. It leads to one of the saddest but most satisfying endings, not only in Disney but in movie history, as Woody stays with Bo Peep as he gives the sheriff badge to Jesse. He gives Jesse a new purpose, like Bo Peep gave Woody a purpose. Because toys, unfortunately, can't last forever in the hands of humans. They, like humans, have to go their own path. And I give Toy Story 4 a lot of credit for doing that, humanizing toys. I love the new cast of characters. Duke Kaboom is great. Ducky and Bunny are really hilarious with some of the jokes about horror that are really good. I love Abby. Abby's really not a villain though. She's more of an anti-hero. She also is trying to find her purpose in being played with. And I love Forky. He's a really cool character. If there was one problem I had with this movie is with Jessie. Like, Jessie's not bad, but I feel they just put her on the side. I really wish that Jessie and Bo Peep would reunite for a little bit, not just for like a few seconds in the movie. I really wish Jessie had a huge part and played a huge role with Woody. I mean, she was a help to Woody in Toy Story 2 and 3. I just really wish she had more in 4. But honestly, those are just nitpicks. This movie does work, and as unnecessary as I think Toy Story 4 is, and I should have stopped at 3, I think Toy Story 4 is pretty satisfying to watch. And I think it does work in ways that can make the series more compelling, and it gives the series justice, in my opinion. it kind of, can't say it throws away everything Toy Story 1 through 3.
Overall, I'm sure you all know the rank, but I really love Toy Story 4. It's a nice conclusion to this franchise that is 25 years old now. Obviously in the S column. We're almost there, Timothy. You got this. I was just personally happy that we're getting an original Pixar film last year. Onward, to me, is pretty underrated. People liked it, but I don't think it gets as much attention as it should. There's obvious reasons why this film didn't do too good at the box office, but we'll get into that later. The movie centers around Ian and Barley. Barley? What? Why do I keep saying it? And they're trying to get their dad back for a day with a spell. It didn't work all the way on their first attempt, so they journey to find a gem. I forgot the name of the gem, I'm sorry. But yeah, Ian wants to do this mainly because he never got a chance to meet his father, and Barley, when his father was in the hospital, was so scared to talk to him. So during their journey, we see many characters and visit different places, up until they make it back to where they started, which is the place where they needed to be. But Ian is so upset that he just snaps at Barley. Ian watches the sunset, and we get my favorite moment where Ian realizes that all the things he wanted to do with his father, he did it with Barley. And it's such a nice moment. And we get to the final battle, and afterwards Ian and Barley's dad is back. But Ian doesn't get a chance to finally meet him. Barley instead gets the chance to say goodbye. Once their dad goes away, Ian makes his way up there, and Barley tells Ian, well, all he says. And Barley gives Ian a hug. And I might be the only one that says this, but yo, I ugly cried watching this. The ending to this film feels so earned to me. Ian didn't get a chance to meet his father, but he was able to do so many things with his brother. It's just too good. Now, not a lot of people saw this movie in theaters due to a certain virus going around and shutting down literally everything, even to the point where the second film of last year got delayed twice, but I'll get into that later. But I really think Onward was something I was not expecting to be too good. I have to put it in the B column. I really like this film. Last but not least, the latest Pixar film is Soul, released on Christmas Day on Disney Plus, and I watched it day one. When I saw the first trailer, I was blown away by the visuals alone. And I got the idea that this film was going to go over the concept of death, but after watching it, the film goes over the message about just living life. Jamie Foxx voices Joey Gardner, and he gives such a great performance. And yo, Felicia Rashad's in this. It's automatically a win. We also have Tina Fey voicing 22, a soul who doesn't want to live. Joe dies falling into a sewer, and it sends him to the great beyond, which he doesn't want to go. So he hops out and makes it to the great before. And that's where we meet 22. And she helps Joe try to get back to his own body. It works, but Joe ends up in a cat, and 22 is Joe. Which I thought this would be the downfall of the film, but the way they do it in this film is so clever. 22 being in Joe's body makes Joe want to live, and I personally think it is cool. And the overall message to this film is just gold to me, and it's something a lot of people could learn from. And come on, I love jazz, so of course I love the soundtrack. Alright, we have ourselves a final special guest. Hey, it's your favorite Pixar film, eh? Nah, I'm playing with you, bro.
When I made this Soul video on my channel and it blew up as big as it did for a small-ass channel like mine, I thought I was never gonna have to talk about this shitty excuse of a Disney movie again. But I guess it ain't nothing to do something for my nigga Tim. So I only have a limited time to talk about this movie, so let me get my thoughts out as quick as possible. This movie is fucking shitty. And when I say it's shitty, it's fucking shitty. Feces in a sewer covered in blood and sperm. Okay, so one of the things I said in my video on my channel, which you should sub to if you like hot takes, is that this movie Soul is frankly soulless. And I know that's cringy, but it's actually fucking true. Pixar decided to make this fucking character that the only trait that he has is jazz. This nigga really likes Donovan Mitchell. I mean, freeform music. You know, jazz. That one form of music that you'll never see in any musical textbook being, you know, created by a black man, and instead it's being created by a white man. But, you know, it was actually created by the blacks. Got him, you know. Blacks won, whites 4 million. But it's okay, it's comeback season. Anyways, this nigga Joe, I'm not talking about Veritas Joe, that fucking twink. The other one that looks like he's built like some linguine. This nigga loves jazz, and that's it. He fucking gets killed within the first 10 minutes of the movie after he gets the chance to play a gig that could land him on a really famous jazz quartet, because Pixar doesn't like niggas having a good time. He becomes a sperm unit and meets another sperm unit who is the most annoying character in any piece of media since Timmy Turner's dad, who is voiced by Tina Fey, that pulls off the most shitty vocal fry, whiny brat voice that she can and makes everyone want to commit channel deletion. God, Tina Fey ruins this movie so fucking much. Did I mention Jamie Foxx, the god, most famous for playing the Blue Electric Man, also plays Joe? No, I didn't? Damn, that's crazy. No one fucking asked you for your opinion. Anyways, blah blah, Joe's soul gets turned into a cat. He gets switched back because Tina Fey gives up her life to switch him back, and Joe regrets it. He all of a sudden feels like his life isn't worth it anymore and wants to give it back to Tina Fey. He does, and the ending message of the movie is, live your life to the fullest, because it can be taken away fast. Damn, I didn't know this movie was made on PBS Kids, or fucking TV Land, because that's the only people that can appreciate this message. There's not a single person who has gotten into their life considerably that needs to be reminded to live your life to the fucking fullest. That message to the movie, that message in this movie is fucking trash. Literally one of the weakest things I've ever heard, ever seen, anything. Anyways, yeah, this movie is fucking trash. Worse than the Meat Mountain, worse than Burger King's nuggets, worse than Red Robin's seasoning, worse than learning to roller skate for the first time and spraining your wrist. I'm not speaking from experience. Anyways, yeah, fuck this movie. Thank you to Tim for having me on and trusting the second most famous yellow bird in the cartoon community, only being bested by Mr. Nostalgia, to handle such a great movie. Yeah, this movie sucks. Pixar and Disney is racist. They can't write a black character if they even tried. And yeah, subscribe to Down Bad Boys, and goodbye niggas. Mwah.
Personally, I had a blast watching Soul. I'll put it in the S column. That's just me though. After 8 months of working on this video, we are finally finished. This is my tier list of all Pixar films. I had such a great time revisiting all these films and reliving all those special moments, quoting literally every line in Finding Nemo, crying like a baby in Toy Story 3, enjoying the action in The Incredibles, etc. Pixar is still making big moves, now more than ever. Luca is right around the corner, and I cannot wait to see Lightyear when it comes out. And I want to thank everyone who joined me in this crazy video, and I want to end this off by saying, I am finally done! This video took forever. You know what time it is? I'm going to sleep. No closing line. I'm for real going to sleep.